6:42 a.m., below freezing. And a daycare that had never seen a single child. What federal agents walked into that morning would expose one of the most disturbing fraud operations Minnesota has ever seen. On paper, this was a routine inspection. In reality, it was the front door to a multi-billion-dollar criminal pipeline, one that turned money meant for hungry children into drugs, disappearances, and human suffering. The 6:42 a.m. daycare raid. We learned today that the local Somali community says it is dealing with backlash from this investigation. 6:42 a.m., St. Paul, Minnesota. The temperature sat well below freezing. The streets of the Southern District were empty, broken only by the exhaust plumes of 3 unmarked federal SUVs idling at the curb. Inside those vehicles sat 11 federal inspectors from the FBI and the Department of Health and Human Services. They weren't there for a drug bust. They weren't hunting a fugitive. On paper, this was a routine compliance inspection of a state-licensed child care center. The facility was run by Amina Farah Hassan, a 45-year-old director whose reputation raised no suspicion. According to state records, she operated 5 child care centers across the Twin Cities, caring for more than 820 children every day. Because of those enrollment numbers, the government subsidies arrived on time, every time. State and federal agents had already raided another daycare connected to the same network in South Minneapolis. On the surface, it looked like a business quietly billing the government reliably year after year. Over 4 years, the total amount paid to the network exceeded $2.8 billion. But when agents stepped out of their vehicles and approached the front door, something felt wrong. The building was silent. No parents dropping off children, no voices, no movement. The lead inspector keyed the lock and pushed the door open. The air inside was stale and cold. The feeling hit immediately. This place wasn't alive. Toys sat neatly on shelves, arranged in perfect rows, coated with a thin layer of undisturbed dust. Cribs stood fully assembled in the nursery, but the mattresses were pristine. They had never been slept on. Attendance sheets hung on the wall, meticulously filled out in blue ink. Every box checked, every child accounted for. And yet, the rooms themselves had never known life. This single center had received more than $46 million in taxpayer subsidies over the previous 12 months, without evidence that even one child had spent a full day inside. Inside the director's private office, investigators found proof of the deception. On the desk sat a heavy binder containing a roster of more than 700 children. As agents flipped through the pages, they realized the sophistication of the scheme. These weren't random names. The network had created synthetic identities, real Social Security numbers purchased on the dark web, paired with falsified birth certificates printed in a backroom operation. An army of ghost children existed only inside the state's payment database. This scheme alone funneled roughly $250 million intended for a nonprofit program designed to feed hungry children. But the true horror sat in the corner of the room, a steel safe, bolted to the floor. When the forensic locksmith forced it open, they didn't just find ledgers. They found $38 million in cash, shrink-wrapped in black plastic. Resting on top were 5 heavy packages stamped with a single insignia, the scorpion logo of the CJNG cartel. In that moment, inspectors understood the truth. This wasn't welfare fraud. This wasn't skimming. This daycare was a money laundering terminal for a transnational criminal organization, funded entirely by American taxpayers. Amina Farah Hassan wasn't running a daycare. She was running a cartel bank. If you believe stealing money meant for hungry children is a crime against humanity, hit the like button and comment "Justice" below. By mid-morning, the inspection had become a full crime scene. Federal auditors began pulling deeper licensing records, and what they found defied logic. A relative, Samira Abdi Hassan, was listed as co-director across multiple sites simultaneously. Children's birth dates overlapped. Home addresses repeated across different cities. From 2021 to 2025, reimbursements reached $2.8 billion. Some months saw deposits exceeding $74 million. The money moved through 43 intermediary accounts. Less than 4% could be traced to legitimate expenses like food, rent, or payroll. There were no food contracts, no maintenance costs. Instead, funds were wired overseas in carefully sized batches, each just below federal reporting thresholds. In less than 9 months, $312 million passed through a single account that never paid a single employee. Money flowed to East Africa, the Middle East, and shell companies in Mexico. This operation didn't survive because it was hidden. It survived because it looked normal. Investigators later uncovered how far the deception went. Inside Amina's digital files was a schedule labeled simulation shifts. Actors were hired to park cars during drop-off hours. Outdoor speakers hidden in bushes played pre-recorded audio of children laughing on a loop. Used car seats were rotated between vehicles to create the illusion of real families. It was a Hollywood-level production, built for an audience of one, the state inspector. By evening, the investigation shifted from audit to manhunt. At 11:58 p.m., federal prosecutors authorized a coordinated sweep. All 5 daycare facilities were raided simultaneously. 12 affiliated offices were breached. Alarms triggered across the financial network. Money started moving fast. In under 18 minutes, $96 million was frantically rerouted through financial tunnels designed to collapse after use. Someone knew the feds were inside. Then came confirmation that changed everything. Surveillance showed Amina Farah Hassan leaving her residence hours earlier. License plate readers tracked her heading south. Maritime records flagged a private vessel scheduled to depart before dawn. She was running. By 2:18 a.m., analysts traced encrypted communications to an industrial property 30 miles outside the city. Officially abandoned. Unofficially alive. Utility records showed massive power usage. Water consumption exceeded 90,000 gallons per day. At 3:36 a.m., aerial surveillance confirmed movement. This wasn't a warehouse. It was a factory, funded by money stolen from Minnesota's children. At 12:21 a.m., the final order came. Entry. Floodlights cut through the darkness as tactical teams advanced. The structure resembled a fortified installation. A controlled breach peeled back a steel door. Inside, the air was toxic. Industrial scrubbers lined the walls, masking chemical signatures. Conveyor belts still moved. Output counters ticked forward. Behind a secondary corridor, agents found the human cost. 61 individuals sat on the floor, malnourished, terrified. Several had been reported missing months earlier. Their fingerprints had been burned off with acid. They weren't just workers, they were ghosts. Evidence teams pushed deeper. Ledgers showed $1.4 billion in precursor chemical purchases. The factory was producing 32 to 38 tons of fentanyl per day and over 70 tons of cocaine per week. It was a closed loop. The government paid the daycare centers. The daycare centers washed the money. The money funded the drug factory. The drugs destroyed the community. By dawn, the scale was undeniable. The confirmed loss to taxpayers exceeded $4.3 billion. More than 68,000 low-income children lost access to care. Legitimate providers closed. Entire neighborhoods were hollowed out. The system hadn't been blind. It had chosen not to look. This case exposed how compassion without verification becomes a weapon, and how the most dangerous criminals don't always look like criminals. The factory is shut down. The money is frozen. But the question remains, how many empty buildings are collecting millions right now while children go without? If you believe every welfare program needs a full audit, comment accountability below. Stay vigilant.